All right, we are live. Hey. Welcome
Hey,
back.
peeps.
Yeah, what's up? What's up, Jazz? Welcome back to another episode of Mind, Your Body, and Soul, the healthiest podcast you have ever heard. And this episode is brought to you by the Blue Neighborhood Medical Center.
All right.
Yeah,
You know
last
what?
time it was the lime green.
I need to get my shades because Joe, you're
Yeah.
cutting
Look.
up over here on me.
Look,
Send me a pair.
I got you.
We even got a red pair, Jazz.
I got a tub full of them.
Now you talking.
I just want to let people know.
Out there.
We phasing out all these designer brands. If you don't have no neighborhood shades, what you doing?
They ain't outreaching.
Right. Hey, so Mind Your Body and Soul is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about the various health topics and information they may or may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves, because that's what we got to do over here. We ain't wasting people's time, right?
That's right.
So now, usually Mind Your Body and Soul would drop every Wednesday. Life didn't happen. And with these vaccines picking up, look, you're gonna get an episode once a week. When it's gonna come out, we'll let you know. But you're gonna get an episode, all right? Just stick around, all right? But remember, go to our parent website at www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org and our podcast website at www.nmcpodcast.com. You can also catch us on Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and of course, all of our YouTube family. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it, comment, because that algorithm thing, that big word, that algorithm, more people can see what's going on with us if you guys share the video. So we here, we got a great show today. This is a show that I've been anticipating doing for a while, because we got an awesome young lady on the show today. Had a chance to meet her 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Time passing. But so for me, I was at work. It was a position of a minority AIDS coordinator. It was a vacant position and we needed to fill it. So a young lady came in, and to say she filled the position is an understatement. She took that position and she redefined this position. Mm-hmm. And she took her passion, her knowledge, her expertise, and just her care for people into our community, and is an actual asset to our community. She was able to go to the University of Miami to pursue her doctorate of philosophy in communications and help me out. Communications and what else?
In communication, but the concentration was health communication.
Okay. I thought
You got it.
Okay. And so a graduate of South Florida University, also a graduate of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, where she received her master's in public health, right? And she's been working as a professional. Now she's an assistant professor at Florida A&M University. So we know those students are in great hands. We've been able to see her contribute greatly, not just to our Tallahassee community, but our Florida community and our American community overall. And trust me when I say spaces are better when she comes in those spaces. So I'm giving you all the dynamic, the incredible Dr. Jazmyne Simmons. Welcome.
All right. Welcome.
Introduction. Thank you,
ma'am.
Joe.
You deserve that.
You deserve it.
Look, I must say, you all took me under your wings, and I could not be where I am. I would not have the knowledge that I have without learning under you guys. It was an honor for Joe to be called the condom man. And when he took me into community, they were like, oh, now that's the condom lady.
Yeah.
So it was truly an honor, truly an honor. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys today.
We're excited to have you. But we're going to go ahead and get this interview going. So, Dr. Jazmyne Simmons, can you tell us why you decided to join the fight against the spread of HIV?
Wow. So there are a lot of reasons why I decided to join. So I'll say firstly, I remember growing up as a kid, probably like 5, 6, 7 years old, and overhearing family members talking about, certain people are, we're losing loved ones. We don't know what's going on. Community is being stricken by, HIV/AIDS. And at the time, obviously growing up, you don't really quite understand it, right? And then I got a little bit older, and my mom was working at the hospital as a respiratory therapist, and there was an emergency. She was working in an ER, and she had an accidental exposure through a needle prick to a HIV positive needle exposure. And so I remember her experience. And then I grew up a little bit more, and she became a public health advocate, earning her degrees in public health. And I really saw what was going on in our community, the work that needed to be done. And so when I was in college, I majored in 2 areas, and I thought that was where I wanted to go until I really learned how public health allows you to just branch out and like really have several topics that you're passionate about. And HIV was always just one of those topics, just because it's so persistent and it impacts people that look like me. So that's all that I needed to just, over time, it was just a passion that kept developing from different experiences, and I just stuck with it, and I love it.
Right. Man, that's cool. Because,
that's great.
Yeah, wanting to join the fight against HIV/AIDS, that's not a normal passion or something that most children are exposed to at an early age, because a lot of parents don't want you to know about this, but the fact that you were able to see it from a place of understanding, and your mother was able to help you understand it as well. That's
absolutely
amazing. That is.
So I want to ask this, kind of walk it back a bit. So I told people about you as a professional, but outside of professional, like, who is Jazmyne Simmons?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so believe it or not, I have a sense of humor, so I consider myself to be quite comedic. Simple family person, honestly. I enjoy the simple things in life. I love watching black and white television, so any oldies, that's my go-to. Cartoons, very simple. I love good food. And I'm just a people's person, honestly. Anything that's good, uplifting, and that just empowers people, like, that's me. I just love being a part of that. So I think that's who I am. I'm a supporter of all things good.
Yes. I like to ask that, because often, I don't like it when the image of a person is crafted only around their profession. You're a whole human being, so I like to ask that so people can get to know you more than just a professional, but get to know you as the person. And
thank you for that, because that's like one of the most important things, to connect with people. Like, people hear, oh, doctor, or, they're the manager of this. Like, no, it's Jazz. Like,
and they forget we people too. We humans. Like, we might got these titles, but we still, we common folk.
Yes, thank you. We common folk. And as a person from the rural side of Tallahassee, I love the word folk. So
right. I use it all the time.
Look, get with it.
Right. So you told us about your mother being an influence on you as far as public health and HIV. But outside of your mother, who were some of the other influences, or what were some of the other things that helped nurture your interest in public health that spurred you to say, you know what, I'm going to pursue this professionally?
Okay, so when I was in undergraduate school, I had an internship at Moffitt Cancer Research Center, and I was in a lab called the Tobacco Research and Intervention Prevention Lab. I think it was called TRIP. And in that lab, what we were studying was how drinking and cigarette smoking influence each other, right? And so I would have the opportunity to just interview people about what their week was like. I would talk to them, so how many drinks did you have this week? How many cigarettes did you smoke? And then we would actually run tests on them and like hook them up to all this equipment, and they could request a cigarette or alcohol. It was just this whole thing of like studying the mind and how individuals respond to their environment. And so that made me want to learn more about how the public health is, how an individual's health is shaped through their experiences in their environment, right? So if they're hanging around someone, and normally I wouldn't want a cigarette, but I'm out with my friends, so now I want a cigarette. Like those were things I wanted to learn more about. And so public health was just that perfect fit. My mentor at the time, when I was in the research lab, she was pursuing her master's in public health. And so she was talking to me about all the options and the different causes you can, be a part of. And I was a double major in psychology and criminology because I had an interest in, how crime, well, not even how crime is impacted, how public health impacts crime. That's what I was interested in. So needless to say, when I learned about public health even more from my mentor, Diana, I was able to kind of say, this is my fit, right? Because I don't have to just lock into this one issue. I can, have several issues that I'm passionate about and contribute to. So that's how I decided to pursue my master's in public health and not go for a degree, graduate degree in psychology instead.
Okay. So also to piggyback on that, with your doctoral degree in communications, how are you using your knowledge and experiences in psychology, public health, and communications to research to serve the community?
Oh, that's a really good one. So the cool thing about my research is I study not only health issues, but I study the use of entertainment to persuade people to choose healthy behaviors. Okay. And so if we know anything about the power of persuasion, it's a mind game. Yes. It's psychology. It's understanding human behavior. It's understanding human emotion. What triggers people to rethink their current attitudes, to encourage them to want to learn more. And so I would say from the psychology end, understanding human behavior, the thought processes, the beliefs, how they engage and choose to maneuver, that's the psychology of it. The communication angle is me studying entertainment, health messages, PSAs, film, all kinds of media that you can think of is what I'm interested in studying and how to reach our populations. And then as it relates to the public health background, I apply those skill sets and passions to different topics. And in most of my research, it's in HIV care and prevention. So I just find a sweet way to blend it all together to essentially just look at how to use media to impact individuals' thinking, behaviors, and attitudes so that we can have better health outcomes.
Okay. So I got a quick question to piggyback on that.
Go ahead.
So with the media, have you noticed that more of the media is changing towards actually the fight against HIV and like the different populations, such as subpopulations like LGBTQ, different, even with the cartoons and different new age shows, they're bringing more diverse topics. Like, normally you see the perfect household, the family, you live in the white picket fence in the house. Now you're seeing it's a single dad. It's just a single mom. It's the brothers taking care of the kids. So how do you think the way the media is going, is that going to be a further advancement for us with healthcare now that, especially with the pandemic and everything's going viral, or do you think we're going to see a decrease in it now?
So I will say this, from what I'm seeing, I'm seeing people think more into the power of entertainment. Mm-hmm. So even if you just think about social issues, right, with George Floyd, if you notice, Netflix created a whole genre to help people understand the plight of the African American community or the Black community, right? Why? Because when you allow people to get a perspective that they otherwise would not be exposed to, you really have a strong chance of influencing their thoughts and behaviors about that given topic. So for people who don't understand social injustice, who never had to live that life, if they want to learn a little bit more in a way where it's not confrontational, a way where they can just receive the information and process it at their own pace, media can be very powerful. Similarly, for health situations, right? We're seeing individuals, writers, and creators be more responsible and diverse in their narratives. Why? Because that's the reality of the viewers, right? We have various audiences. People are not living this monolithic lifestyle. We have several different audiences. And from a creative's perspective, I'm sure the goal is to tap into those audiences, right? And so I think from the health lens, that's going to continue. Even Grey's Anatomy, I've always loved their show because they always have really good health messages. Many shows have now included messages on COVID. You see, in the shows or the films, people walking around with a mask on, identifying the fact that this is a pandemic that we're living in and we're not going to ignore it. So I think it's going to continue. There's a lot of writers and creators who are really serious about this work. Taraji P. Henson, her foundation is going to focus on how to get more positive mental health narratives into mediated content. And so that's going to be very powerful for the African-American community, just as it relates to mental health. So I'm hoping that it's not a temporary trend. I'm hoping that it's persistent and continues for the good of our community and abroad.
Me too.
Yeah. So staying, because you made me think, I had to write some stuff down. Okay. So staying in the realm of communication. So I got to take back something I said in the intro. When I first met you, you were doing the presentation on human trafficking at Walker Ford Community Center. So that I had to think about that. So using your background in public health and communications, how did that come about, you being able to get into a space to where you have researched human trafficking and are giving presentations about it?
So I'm excited to talk about that. I haven't talked about human trafficking in a while. So actually, human trafficking, HIV was something I was passionate about, obviously, as a kid and growing up. But when I got in college and I majored in criminology, I really learned a lot about human trafficking. And so that became another one of my passion projects, was like, I want to understand how something like this is being perpetuated and how is it going overlooked. This was like 2008 through 2011. That's when I was studying criminology and really looking into human trafficking. And so just from my coursework, I really felt like I needed to get involved in that more. So I dedicated my master's degree to understanding human trafficking. And that's what my thesis was on, was just trying to understand whether or not victims of human trafficking were being identified when they were coming in contact with nurses in the state of Florida. And overall, what we saw was that there was not a lot of familiarity of what a human trafficking victim looked like from the sample that I surveyed. And so to me, I was like, okay, wow, that means there's a problem here, because there's so many times that healthcare providers were coming in contact with human trafficking victims and possibly not even recognizing it, especially if you're working in the ER or, rural community centers or things like that. And so I just wanted to know more about that and try to figure out how to contribute to this issue, to improve it. So I'm excited.
That presentation was very good. It was thorough. It was good. You gave a lot of details, and you made us think about what was going on as well. But also, not to hog it, Mathias, but you had your own show.
She did.
Yes, the Jasmine show. I miss it so much.
So you got to tell the people about the Jasmine show.
Cool. So the Jasmine show, once again, was my effort to try to make health and social issues entertaining, to engage our local community on topics that otherwise we don't want to talk about. So, for example, HIV, human trafficking, LGBTQ rights and health issues. So I felt like, okay, I'm young. I have, an opportunity to connect with other young people and older people as well about topics that I'm passionate about. And so I was excited to be able to partner and air that show through FAMU TV 20. And it was just my effort to just try to bring some entertainment into the health and social sector in a way it could be better received.
Yeah.
So
see, that's the good part, because you actually taking stuff that people don't want to talk about, but you're making it fun and interesting. And like Joe and I recorded a previous podcast about outreach and how we can we got to think outside the box on how we can get people to engage. Like I say, the normal health fair that, most people do at a church or a community center, that works for some people. That don't work for everybody, because everybody's not going to come. So you got to find a way to captivate their audience to get them to enjoy it, but also get the education at the same time.
Absolutely.
And I thank you for your commitment and your efforts in doing that early, because a lot of people just started doing that right as the pandemic. They was like, let me get creative now. But like, we've been trying to get creative since the beginning of the time. And it's just like, what else can we do, or how can we top what we just did? Because we always thinking about what we can do next, or how we can go further, or how we can grow. So I do want to commend you for your efforts for starting that early.
Yes.
So you understand that fight in trying to get people educated.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I miss it a lot. Who knows? Maybe one day.
Bring
You
it
might have
back.
to bring it
on
back.
the
A
scene.
throwback.
Right.
What they call it? Throwback Thursdays, and have
Yes.
your own throwback and come on with the Jasmine TV show.
Yes.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
over the years, I understand that, especially with your doctoral degree and things like that, you've done, and masters, you've done research projects and clinical trials and those different things. Can you tell us about your experiences doing research and clinical trials, and actually explain to us the importance of research being conducted?
Oh yeah, sure. So my research at the University of Miami, I focused on how to use entertainment education specifically to address HIV prevention and care, right? So throughout my time, there were 3 studies that I did. One, and all 3 of these studies, I have to give a shout out, was on the 90 Days film, produced and directed by Nathan Hale Williams, my big brother. I love him so much. I'll be happy to share the story about how I met him, and Richard Pelzer, awesome dynamic team who they're really doing great work in the realm of using entertainment to address social and health issues, especially in the LGBTQ community and the African American community. So I can chat about that as well. But particularly, I was trying to understand how to use entertainment education as far as the clinical trial to address HIV status disclosure, medical adherence, and internalized stigma in Black women living with HIV. And so what that clinical trial entailed was some of the women watched the 90-day short film, which is like 19 minutes, and other women read the brochure on HIV stigma, disclosure, medical adherence. And what I found was individuals who watched the film were more likely to report intentions to disclose their status to their sexual partners. They also felt that they could have a better outcome of their disclosure event based on what they saw on television. They had more confidence in their ability to disclose. And they also felt that they could use the film as a safety measure, right? Because when we talk about disclosure, safety is always an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this sense, they felt, well, if I have a boyfriend, we can watch the movie together. And if he responds negatively when the young lady discloses her status, then I know that's not someone I need to disclose to, and that it's probably not safe to do that. So that was one of my, I would say, highlights, like one of the things that really touched me, like personally, to see that, because we advocate for disclosure for the sake of prevention, but there's a flip side to it that individuals really experience, especially women, as it relates to interpersonal violence, intimate partner violence. So that was the clinical trial. I feel like research is important so that we can figure out what are the best approaches to address these issues, and then move forward from there. And so that's what my clinical trial was about. I did a focus group study before that as well that actually talked to women, sat down and heard their perspectives of what resources they have as it relates to disclosure. Limited, none, from what they were talking to me about. And they preferred to have the film as a learning tool, because disclosure is not just a behavior we know how to do. It's hard to tell someone anything, that may be personal, not just HIV. And so just through that series of research, I was able to really find the strength in entertainment education, learn more about how to apply it, what the theories are that support it, and then just turn around and study the outcomes of it.
So with that, knowing that it's hard to disclose, do you think the reason why most people more reacted to the video was because of the comprehension of basically having a better understanding instead of just reading and not really understanding what disclosure is, versus them seeing what it really was and how it unfolded in person? Do you think that had a bigger impact on it?
So I'll say, combining what I know from the focus group study and the clinical trial, the biggest thing was they saw someone that looked like them disclosing their status. So in the film, there's the lead character, Tayana Paris, played a character named Jessica. And Jessica is the one who discloses her status to her, at the time, her boyfriend, Taylor, played by Nick Few. And so what a lot of the ladies said in the qualitative study was that we were able to see someone who looks like us, a Black woman, disclose her status. She didn't look like the stereotype that we often see in other movies. She didn't, they had all these different films that they were naming that they had previously watched that they felt didn't accurately reflect the life of a Black woman living with HIV. And so their thing was, we saw someone who looked like us disclose her status. She did it with confidence. At the end of it, there was, the physical abuse or anything like that. There was none of that. It was a heated conversation. But nonetheless, they felt like it was a successful disclosure. So seeing someone that looked like them do it and do it well, they felt like I can do this too. Okay. And I will add that what they also reported was they felt like we're told to disclose, but we don't know what that looks like. I mean, we're walking into this blind. What does that look like? And then sure, we can bring our partner in to our doctor to help us disclose. But what if I don't want them to know where I get healthcare services? Then what's my other option? Right? So all of these were conversations I was able to have with women to really see what they were wanting in this process for disclosure, especially since we're in the South and it's highly criminalized more than any other region, for non-disclosure. So that's another reason why I really want to continue this work, because there's policies in place that perpetuate this situation and are not necessarily to the benefit of those living with HIV.
Right. Yes. You just made me think about something totally different in a different outlook, because you always tell, make sure you disclose, make sure you do this. But there's never really been a course or anything to teach anybody how to disclose, except just to say, hey, I'm HIV positive. That's it. That's the only thing that they can say. And then you don't think about what could happen afterwards. Like, even if they come into the clinic and you help them and you address it with them, what happens when they go home once it sinks in to that other person, like the repercussions. And it just makes you think now. Now that just made me think more about how we can try to come up with more ways to help the clients itself, because we always tell them you need to make sure you disclose your status to your partner. Be careful who you disclose to, but that's it. We never really break it down like that.
And see, there's so many elements to disclosure, right?
It is.
And disclosure is not just like, you have a disclosure event, but there's a whole process to that, right? The whole process to even work yourself up to disclose or to continue not to disclose, right? And then you have, okay, if I disclose to this person, what's the outcome? We have social media now. This is not the 90s, right? All it takes is one blast of a tweet, one blast of a Facebook update to, breach someone's privacy when they've trusted someone to disclose. And that's another factor that they mentioned. Social media is an issue. And so I will say this. They also felt that if their partners watch the 90 Days film, they may be more receptive to the disclosure. And that was really important because I feel like this film humanizes people with HIV. And I feel if I watch this with my partner, they may be more understanding and more open when I disclose, which could lead to a more successful disclosure event. So the power of entertainment and media, I'm all in for it because our traditional methods have been outdated for a very long time.
Right. But also you made me think about why they're looking to decriminalize not disclosing your status, and some of the like the importance of research, because that was like the next question to get into. It was like we have our community. I say we put it on the wire, whatever the narrative is, whether it's social media. I can't say it like I want to say it on this podcast, but the narratives that are put out there, and they become popular, and I always make a joke about how informative memes are, because why go to college when you can read a meme, right?
Look, I do research on that too, so we can talk about that another time. But you're right.
But it's like the importance of conducting research. Like you just talked about, the kind of hammer it home for a lot of people, especially in this age of COVID with the vaccines and everything, because you have these narratives on this side that have become popular within the community. Then there's the actual information that people are listening. So kind of hammer it home for people why not only like the agencies conducting research, but the individual you conducting your own research is empowering to you.
Yes. And it's important to, this is just my shameless plug. Anytime I see people of color saying that they're interested in graduate school or PhD, I advocate to go. Why? Because we need more researchers that look like us. Because when I walk into the room with Black women, they see me, right? And they're like, okay, we can talk to her, and it lets that guard down where we can be authentic and really just learn and then move forward to not just learn and do the research, but figure out how to apply what we find, right? Because that's another part that we can discuss later. But it's so important that people like us are doing the research. We're seeing that even with COVID vaccine. Now they're trying to make sure they show African Americans were part of the vaccine development as well. Why? It can build a level of trust. It can build a level of sincerity where individuals feel like, okay, this is someone I can trust. They may be sincere in their approach to this. And so, research really, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. But when you can do it on something that you're truly passionate about and connect with people personally, I mean, you can just, it's a whole nother feeling.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, that's kind of like what we talked about yesterday, Joe, where the people actually see people in the community. And it's not just for one time. You actually see those same people and you start to build that rapport. And building a rapport has a great value when it comes to healthcare itself, because if people value what you say, they're going to listen and they're going to do. And that's just like when we do outreach and the people say, no, you really need to listen to these guys. They know what they're talking about. I've done it. I tried it. I did this. So, you know what I'm saying? That is like, it's amazing. How can we see this 90-day film?
So the 90 Days film is available online. You can rent it or purchase it, and I can send you all the link. I think it's the 90daysfilm.com. And so, I mean, it's a stellar film. It's supported by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation as well as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And it's only 19 minutes. And I mean, the jam-packed information that is in there, I mean, it's really, really impactful. And I mean, across all of the studies that I've done on this film, it's been consistent that it has an impact, whether it's in the prevention angle or addressing disclosure, even addressing stigma, right? Because we often look at community stigma, right? How people feel about HIV, but individuals living with HIV may have stigma of their own against themselves for having HIV. And that's one of the most consistent predictors of non-medical adherence, right? So trying to figure out how to make people feel better about themselves, how to make them feel confident. I mean, the 90 Days film, I love it for so many reasons.
So Joe, you know where my mind going, right?
What's that?
Tell me.
I think we need to have for our healthy happy hour or something, or just a community event when things open back up.
Days.
I think we need to have a 90 days party where we can actually watch the movie together and then have an open panel discussion with professionals to sit there and see how we can help break down some of these barriers, because that's mainly what we need to start doing again, is breaking down these barriers. When the COVID opens, and it's not going away no time soon, but when COVID gets a little bit more relaxed and things start opening up, we need to figure out how we need to hit these barriers hard, because you still have a lot of women who have been under abuse mentally and physically because they're home, they can't do nothing, they're, you know what I'm saying, and all those other things. So a lot of the education that we used to do has gone away because people forgot, because COVID's here. You're in the right now. You're in the new now, not the new, you know what I'm saying, the new normal. So I think we do need to do that, and that'll be a great way to start out something big, is to open up something, have that educational panel discussion. I think that's something we need to do.
And we can only have one person host it.
And which is Jasmine, Dr.
You know
Jasmine Simmons. That's it.
You know
we can get some other healthcare professionals up there that can, you know what I'm saying, really relate. Maybe even have a mental health person or somebody else to sit there, so we can, you know what I'm saying, dissect this and figure out ways that we can actually help people. Because I think that'll be a great thing to do, because we don't have nothing. I don't think any agency has anything that will allow people to help them disclose. and feel comfortable about it. And it's not just for men. I mean, not just for women, but we need to figure a way we can do it for the men, for everybody, the LGBTQ, because that's a big population that doesn't get as much recognition for like the domestic violence and things like that in the fight, because they look at it as it's just two men or just two women, but they go through the same thing. It's not classified the same, but how can everybody and open up to everybody, how everybody can disclose and have it, you know what I'm saying, feel okay and that they're not going to be hurt or attacked or, you know what I'm saying, not decriminalized, but defaced on Facebook and stuff. Because, you know, social media, it takes, like you said, it takes one tweet, one quote, that one phone call, and it's like,
it's over.
It's over.
Absolutely. I would be so happy to partner with you all on that. And if Nathan is available, he's always said he'll be more than happy to come here for a screening. So if we can make that work.
Great. That would be, I could see it now. I got a vision.
You see, you hear, y'all.
I got a vision.
Hey.
It's going to happen. I can't wait till we open up fully to go back, because I'm telling you, Joe and I have been on the grind. There's a lot of things we want to do to bring awareness to HIV and grow, you know what I'm saying, the Round White program, because the program is just so unrecognized for what it does.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know about what we do as a Part C program. Joe, that's probably another podcast we need to do as well, is the different parts of Round White and how it serves the community. You know, my mind is thinking. But I just really want to do that. I'm excited now. I'm really excited.
Pin me on your calendar.
Oh, yeah. You good. You good. So 90daystoFilm.com is the website. That's a nice website, too. 90daystoFilm.com. Okay, they have the young lady, Hadia Broadbent. I think that's her name. I see a picture up here.
And Tayana Paris, she's the lead. She plays Jessica, and then Nick Few, he plays Taylor. They do outstanding together. The chemistry on screen is amazing. 90 Days is highly awarded. It's received international film awards. But then again, like I mentioned, it crosses directly into that health sector with AIDS Healthcare Foundation, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So yeah. I love the 90 Days film, and there's so much more great work that Nathan is doing and that Richard is doing that's going to benefit our community for sure.
Right, yeah. Even looking at the young lady who's the lead, I can't remember what I've seen her, but I've seen her somewhere before in a couple movies. So.
Yeah, she's been in quite a bit. She's on the grind. She's doing great right now.
So how did you manage to get this film and this event here in Tallahassee? Because it was on FAMU's campus, correct?
So actually, the screening that we did, that was online, but it wasn't with FAMU. Okay. There were some events that they were having as the film producer that they were being invited to, and I participated as a panelist. But I met them through a film festival in Miami in 2017. The American Black Film Festival that's every year in South Beach. And at the time, I was just starting the PhD program at UM, and I knew I wanted to investigate entertainment education. And so I was, going through all of the screenings to see if I could find any films that were related to health and hopefully HIV. And I came across theirs. So I went to the screening. I was absolutely floored, and I asked them, would they be interested in evaluating this film? Because the goal for the film was to address stigma in HIV. So I was like, hey, would you guys be interested in me, evaluating it, doing some surveys with it? And they were just like, of course. And I mean, that professional encounter has turned into a really great friendship. Yes. And I've been fortunate to do a lot of great things with Nathan and Richard. So that's how that came about.
But it's okay. So let me ask you like this. Graduating from FAM, graduating from South Florida, you're working in communications, you're studying communications, you're studying public health, you're studying all these things. And I know you wanted to put it all together, and you have put it all together, but did you ever imagine that it would come together in this manner at this junctions where there's an actual film and you're actually like all these things you've been studying and using is right here to you? Did you ever imagine that it would come together so seamless like this?
I did not. And I tell Nathan all the time, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it was just God. It was just divine intervention. Yeah. Like it was just meant to be. Because so while I was in graduate school, I was dabbling in acting. Like I liked acting as well. My elementary school was an art school. So that was a part of why I liked entertainment for education, because they always used the arts to teach us. And so it was always engaged in Metropolitan Christian Academy of the Arts. It's no longer, but that was my school. Like we learned through the arts, like every single thing, like there was some type of way they taught us through the arts. And it was so powerful to me and it stuck with me. And so that was kind of like what got me thinking, like there's more ways to get people engaged about sensitive topics. Like we can use entertainment, we can use media. And so that's pretty much what my goal was. But I had no idea it would come together like this. I had no idea that Nathan would actually respond to my text messages or my emails, because you know, meeting a producer who's well known, he's done a lot of great work. And they're like, oh yeah, I'll email you back. In my mind, I'm like, I really hope he does. I really hope he does. Yeah. And he did. And I mean, we met in 2017 in June. By August, we were doing our first study at different film festivals. We did a study that looked at the film and its impact while it was screening in Atlanta, New York, and DC. So that was in June. And then the next year, I applied for a grant along with some of my mentors at UM. Then we did the second study, which was the focus group study with the ladies. So then I was like, okay, this is good. This is good. Got some more funding, which was the NIH funding for my dissertation, and did the randomized controlled trial. And we were like, we've done 3 studies. Like it's been amazing, but I could not have imagined it would turn out like this. It's a huge blessing. Yeah, honest to goodness. It really is.
So you make this stuff cool.
Right. Like it makes it different.
Seriously, if I was in high school and I'm able to come across people like yourself doing an activity like that, it reshapes the mind. It helps me see it different, because when I was young, I wanted to be a football player or athlete because that looked fun and they made a lot of money and it was cool. Science was like, okay, I don't want to be in class with no pocket protector and the glass with the tape around it and stuff. It was Steve Urkel. It's like, come on, nobody wants to be Steve Urkel. But it's like, okay, now we're seeing the real faces of science, real faces of research, real faces of professionalism, and it looked like cool. It looks cool. It's you. It's me. It's us. So it's just it's refreshing. I love it. I love it.
You know, that goes back to Joe, not putting people in a box or judging people by what they do. Right. Like you said in the beginning, because someone might look a certain way at work, but it's a totally different person outside of work. So you can't judge a book by its cover, because you never know what's under that cover. And I just enjoy it so much. I really do. I'm glad about this conversation. It's given us so much insight on things we haven't even had a chance to get insight on, that we haven't really, talked about, or things that we need to talk about more to feel how we can get those out there. So I'm really glad about this topic today.
Hey, you know what? I titled this episode "When Passion Meets Purpose."
Oh, that's real good.
It lined up. It lined up. So yes,
Joe, you spoke it into existence. You manifested. You manifested this conversation.
There you go.
Because see, that even goes. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, because I was sitting thinking about, because I was creating a flyer and everything earlier, and I was sitting thinking, I was reading through all the information, and it just kept coming to my mind, when passion meets purpose. When passion meets purpose. And so as you are articulating your journey, literally passion met purpose.
It did. That's the best way to explain it. That is the best way to explain it.
That's cool.
Which, you know what I'm saying, Joe, now that actually goes into like the next question. It says, when it comes to stigma against people living with HIV and AIDS, can you explain what stigma is and how you have worked to eliminate the stigma?
Oh, yes. So sorry, guys. So stigma is one of those things that we cannot let up on.
Right.
We can't. Oftentimes we talk about stigma, we just hear it as stigma, right? But stigma manifests in so many different ways. And so the consequences of it, the negative consequences of it, are very powerful. So we have there's like 3 primary types of stigma. So we have like community stigma, general stigma, right? How people feel about HIV. You have anticipated stigma, right? So some people may not get tested because they feel like, oh, if I test positive, I'm going to be stigmatized for living with HIV, right? So that's anticipated stigma. And then we have internalized stigma, which is what I mentioned before, which is when an individual who is living with HIV feels negatively about themselves. Some have reported feeling like they have a spoiled identity, or, you know, not really worth it because they're living with HIV. And so each of these types of forms of stigma impact different phases of the HIV care and prevention continuum, right? Such as preventing individuals from taking their medicine, because if they feel negatively about themselves, they may not want to be medically adherent. Or if they haven't disclosed, they may not be able to be medically adherent because they don't want to risk an accidental disclosure by taking their meds. So addressing stigma is like one of the things where if we can address stigma properly, we can improve the disclosure outcomes. We can improve medical adherence outcomes. And so one of the things that I've done is use entertainment education once again to see how we can improve stigma. Right. So the first study that we did on the 90 Days film, we looked at it just in community. Right. It was just sampling people at the film festivals after they watched the film to see what their perceptions were about HIV stigma. Mm-hmm. So that was one way. The second way was actually addressing the population living with HIV to see how we can evaluate the film for internalized stigma, which is essentially just making people feel better about themselves, making them understand it's just a chronic illness. No need to feel bad about yourself or feel like you're spoiled or anything like that. And so through watching how entertainment education can empower, that's how I began to address stigma, specifically internalized stigma as it relates to HIV. When women felt better about themselves, they were like, I can disclose. And one young lady, I'll never forget, she called back to the center where I was partnering to do the study. And she was like, I just want to let you all know that that film and that discussion really impacted me. I want to get back in care. Like, those are things, that's music to our ears, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not in the field anymore, but that's still music to our ears when someone says, I want to get back in care. I want to be compliant because I feel empowered. So that's how I've been using my research to look at entertainment education for those 3 areas and not just look at them by themselves, right? To see overall, can it address stigma? Can it also address medical adherence? And can it also address disclosure?
Right. See, this, I'm gonna have to clip that out and I'm gonna repost that. No, because
I never heard stigma broken down like that. It's just, exactly. You broke it down to see. I was over here writing on my little notes, like community, general, analytical. You know what I'm saying? Internal. Like you don't think about like the stigma that way itself, and that's why it's good to always have these conversations with other educational people, other educated people, because you get to bounce things off of people, and you get to, you know, reconfigure things and see how things work. Because I would have never broke down stigma like that. I would have never broke down stigma like that.
I've never in my life heard stigma broke down like that. That was excellent.
That was. And I'll just add this into internalized stigma is the most understudied form of stigma, right? Oftentimes when we create interventions or events, we try to improve community stigma, and that's necessary. It's necessary because they feed off of each other. If I think others feel bad about me, I may feel bad about me. Right. So we still need to address community stigma, but it's also necessary we address how people feel about themselves. And we do that consistently, because if you can make me feel better about myself, then that can be a buffer for how other people feel about me. Right. I may not feel so bad if I feel good about myself. But if I'm already feeling down about myself and someone else feels down about me, well, then it perpetuates that feeling. And that's what we call stigma.
So that goes back into, we need to do more empowerment events, more uplifting the community, uplifting individuals who do feel like they're down about themselves. We got to get back to building the community from the ground up. It's just like, you know, when people go through different processes or different things in life, you have to break everything down and start there and build them up to where you want them to be. And I think that's what we need to start doing back again, is going back and doing more empowerment events, women empowerment, men empowerment. I mean, because a lot of times people don't understand that men can have a lot of self-esteem issues as well.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? We have to break those down. And like I said, Jasmine, you're giving us a lot of things to think about, because things you're breaking down now, I haven't seen or heard, or, you know what I'm saying, I haven't thought about it like that. And it's just like, my wheels are turning. So I really think we need to do another podcast on this stigma, Joe.
Look.
And I'll just add one more thing. So I know I mentioned y'all about anticipated stigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So amongst individuals, just general population, not even people who are living with HIV, men who have sex with men have the highest levels of anticipated stigma as it relates to getting tested for HIV. And that level of anticipation of, if I test positive, I'm going to be treated negatively, it's also been found to be strongly linked to depression. So when we address stigma, we're addressing mental health, right? So it's just important that we don't isolate it to say, oh, if we address stigma, it's only going to address HIV. No, there's several ways in which stigma impacts people, from HIV to mental health, and how they intersect with each other. So those are just pockets of things to keep in mind when we're thinking about interventions and what exactly we're trying to address and who we're trying to address, right?
So, okay, to piggyback off that, because you know my wheels went to turning. So, do you feel that the reason why anticipated stigma in the MSM population is due to the social media, the way they portray them so negatively, or portray them one-sidedly? Because, you know, most people think that the average gay person is this flamboyant person, and when you look at the LGBTQ population, everybody doesn't fit in a box.
Right.
And so do you feel like that's the reason it's anticipated stigma is due to the way they're negatively portrayed on social media or through different things? I mean, it's changing now where you're seeing different types of things, but from previous years, do you feel like that's a way that's causing it to be the anticipated stigma because they're anticipating what they see on TV and other outlets?
So I can definitely say one of the contributors to anticipated stigma among that specific population is the fact that, so if we think about the beginning of HIV and AIDS, right? Initially, it was termed GRID, right? Saying that it was only related to gay people.
Right.
So from the start, there we have it. We've already classified, separated, isolated, and marginalized a group of people about a health condition, right? So there we have that. So then if you think about now, where 1 in 2 Black men who have sex with men have a life expectancy of testing positive for HIV in their lifetime. Right. When you hear things like that, and we have to obviously state the data, you have to, right? It's necessary to validate why we're doing this work. But sometimes messaging, which is why I love health communication, especially when it's done properly, but sometimes messaging can even perpetuate stigma. Right. So an individual may feel like, oh, well, geez, the way they term this makes it seem like I don't stand a chance. Like eventually I'm going to test positive, right? And so you can create a pattern of helplessness. And so out of that, it's like fear of testing for HIV because I'm at such high risk, right? We hear high risk and we don't break down what does that mean, right? What exactly does that mean, and how anybody can be at high risk at any given time, depending on behavioral choices. But that's a topic for a whole nother time. But one of the, for sure, what increases anticipated stigma is knowing that the way it is now is there's a high chance that they may test positive based on the stats. So if we're just showing somebody an infographic and they say C1 and 2, for them, that may not be the best health message. So just knowing our population and knowing how those messages can come across, we need to tailor a different strategy. Maybe not an informational. For me, I look at how to use memes to address it, because memes can be engaging, they can be humorous, and they can just bring it down a notch, right? Maybe just bring that fear down, just engage, give information, and maybe some engagement by sharing, tweeting, laughing, you know. And so we just have to figure out what's the best approach for our audience based on the type of stigma they may be dealing with.
Right. You made me think about we had a patient test positive, and all his life his mother gave him the message of Black men who have sex with men are going to get HIV. Black men who have sex with men are going to get HIV. So that message was reinforced throughout his life. And when he found out he was positive, it was almost as if he realized he fulfilled his mother's prophecy.
And see, that's where we have to be careful, right? Because as family members, we have power in the outcomes of our loved one's health. Because oftentimes when people make health decisions or behavioral choices, they don't do it in isolation. They may run it by a cousin, or if they're close with their mom or a friend. And those are times where we can step in. Unfortunately, that message can make people feel helpless. Like, well, either way, I'm going to get it. So what's the use in wearing a condom? What's the use in getting on PrEP? Right. And so we have to, as educators, as researchers, figure out the best approach to give the health information.
Right.
Right. And so in that sense, that's why testing can be reduced among men who have sex with men, because it's like, I feel like I'm going to test positive. It's just the inevitable. It's not. You don't have to become positive because you have sex with men. You know, that's not true. There's ways to protect ourselves or to protect yourself. And so that's the message that needs to be perpetrated or perpetuated, because that message of you have a high chance, you're just going to get it, can become a feeling of helplessness. So
that's true.
I think those are definitely the messages. And like you said, in the media, how it's portrayed that, oh, you know, this person got it because they slept with a gay man, right? It's just there's a fine line in entertainment between being stereotypical and presenting reality.
Right.
And that's why it's important that writers and creators are from that reality so that they can properly reflect it on screen.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
Because I think that's the same thing goes back to stigma, is with why women don't want to get on PrEP.
Yeah.
It's because they think, oh, it's just for the gay men. And it's been stigmatized to be that.
Yeah.
And it's not. And even if you look at some of the commercials and things, you still see it. It looks like it's for transgenders and for, you know what I'm saying, all the different things that you're looking at. It's just like, but it's for everybody. And so you have to break down those stigmas and stereotypes for the people, because you're like, I'm trying to help you and prevent you, but this is what we need to do. But they was like, nope, that's for the LGBTQ. And it's like, no, it's for everybody. It's not just for one thing.
Exactly.
And so, but I get that. So we do need to do some work on stigma.
Exactly.
Yes. Absolutely. Can't let up.
Right.
Right. We're gonna have to beat this down.
Right. And we got the do you know a gentleman by the name of Sean Kruger, Jazz?
I don't think so.
I have to introduce you to.
Please do.
Because he's big on he has great message on stigma and combating stigma. So we definitely got to hook you two up.
Absolutely.
So you have your experience and working in public health, working in communications, practical experience doing research in the real world. It's not just theoretical, it's actual applied information. And you do a great job. So with all of your experience and success and advice, and experience and all those things, what advice would you give to future public health workers or any younger people who may be looking at you or other people in your similar position who want to follow in the footsteps, but may not know how to take that first step? What advice would you give them to help them start their journey to becoming successful?
So I would say, firstly, figure out what is your passion, right? And what is your angle? Because we address HIV. Several people have different ways they address HIV. What I love is looking at entertainment and its impact, right? That's me, because I love the arts and the sciences. I'm not I can't just do one. I love them both. So I would say figure out what's your passion, what's your angle, right? And then what's the strategy that works best for you? For me, I always knew I wanted to go straight through school. I didn't want to take a long break because I felt like if you take a break, you may not go back, all of those things, right? So if you feel like you want to go to college, do you want to go all the way through? Is the PhD the goal? Is a master's the goal? Is the bachelor's the goal, right? And then figure out from there, what would be your dream agency, right? Whether it's working for an agency or starting your own. And what values would you like to incorporate into that agency, or what values would you be looking for in an agency? And then work your way back. What type of people do they hire? Right? What type of qualifications do those people have? Trainings or certifications do they have? So I would just say, first, start with your passion and your angle, your approach, so that everything you do can be authentic and not just a reflection of what you saw someone else do. And then figure out, okay, what's my strategy? Do I want to go all the way through college? You know, how do I want to address this? Right. So being true to yourself is, I would say, the first thing, so that you can be authentic in your work. And that's how you give your best self, especially in the realm of public health, because it can be tiring when you feel the needle is not moving, when you feel there's another policy that's being passed that's, you know, setting you back. I mean, this it's work for the eager, and it's work for those who are really going to keep beating it down. And so it's got to be something you're passionate about and that you can be your true self with.
Well, folk, there you have it. There you have it. Look, she laid it out thoroughly. Like this, we definitely enjoyed this interview with you. This was a conversation.
This has been a pleasure.
Yes.
This was a conversation.
Right. All right. So somebody see this. We know they're gonna like it. They're gonna enjoy it. They're like, she's on point. I need to get in contact with her. So how do people get in contact with you?
Sure. So I can be contacted via email, and that's jasmine.simmons@famu.edu. Please feel free to reach out to me there. I'm on social media, JazzyS1 on Instagram, Jazmyne Simmons on Facebook. And so that's how I can be reached. Please don't hesitate. Contact me. I love connecting, and, you know, things like this are always awesome. You guys always give me things to think about too. So those are my means of contact.
Cool.
Okay.
Look, I'm telling you, an asset. To say she's an asset is an understatement, man. I thoroughly am proud of you. I thoroughly enjoy you. I'm just happy about all of the success that you've had and the success that you're going to continue having, because when you're one of the people, when you're successful, it reaches other people and it helps other people. So definitely enjoy that. So y'all be looking out for future collaborations.
Yes.
For us. When we get to go back outside fully, some things are going to happen. And it's a pleasure to have you on this podcast.
It is. And we really thank you for your time, because, like I said, you taught us some things that it made us look at things differently. So I really thank you for that. We miss these conversations.
I know.
We used to come in that conference room and sit there and power out for hours on trying how we can do events and do things. So we do miss those conversations. And this just felt like one of those conversations. And now it's kind of like, you know how you need to get that fire back under yourself? It kind of gets that fire back under yourself that you're talking to other people, like, let's do this. Okay, I'm back in this work. I'm back in this. And so I really appreciate that, because you got the fire under my feet now, and I am ready and more even empowered to even figure out what we can do next as we move on.
Oh, yes.
It's truly been a pleasure. And I thank you all so much for just reaching out to me. I miss you guys so much. And I'm so proud of the work that you all are doing. Our community is better because of you as well. You all are people's people. You know, you're not just in it for the check. And so that's so important. And I appreciate all you all have contributed to me in my journey and grooming me into this person that I am. I love you both. Thank you so much.
We love you. Love you and we're part of this journey with you as well. So with that being said, y'all, this is why this is the healthiest podcast out here, right? Mind your body and soul. And we do want to give a shout out to Miss Alana Steaple and Mr. Ian Costello, because they are a big part of this podcast too. So we want to give them their love. And remember, Mind Your Body and Soul is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about the various health topics and information they may or may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves. www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org is the parent website. www.nmcpodcast.com is our website. Remember, we're also available on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. We're also on Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So we out here. So with that being said, I'm Joseph Ward. He's Mathias Sweet, and she's the incredible Jazmyne Simmons. And we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
All right, y'all. Take it easy.